Welcome. This is another in a series of videos with Aubrey Daniels from Aubrey Daniels International, based on the book Oops, Management Practices That Waste Time and Money and What to Do About Them. In this video, we'll talk about the annual ritual that most companies put their employees through that employees and managers both hate. We're talking about performance reviews. Oh, it's that time of the year again. 80-20 rule. In this case, what does the 80-20 relate to?
Well, as it relates to performance appraisal, it's that 80% of the people think they're in the top 20%.
Everybody's above average.
That's Garrison Keillor would say.
And there are a number of issues with performance reviews. I love the possibility we could talk people into stopping them. One is that we don't do them on time.
Yeah. Well, that tells you it's a negative process for everybody involved. I mean, we try to put them off as long as we can. I know many cases where people haven't gotten a review in 2 or 3 years. You know, why would we do something that everybody hates to do?
So why?
Well,
why do them? Well, I mean, you know, I guess I know why you're doing them. You're trying to use them as a way to remind people of their shortcomings, so you can get more productivity out of them.
Yeah. Well, the best job you'll ever have, and most, people that I'm around will never have it, is one where you know at the end of every day how well you've done. When you take a bad process and do it more often, it doesn't make it better. And that's exactly what people are beginning to do. Say, well, an annual performance appraisal, maybe the problem is we need to do it more often, so they do it quarterly. And people don't get over being upset by the previous one before they have to do it again, so they're just constantly upset.
And their pay is probably tied to it, too.
Well, in many cases, organizations are trying to, they say we want to separate the appraisal process from the pay. Now, come on. You know, anybody knows that over a period of time, there's got to be some relationship between the way you're appraised and the way you're paid. So it's kind of a false issue as far as I'm concerned.
In fact, in some companies, those who worship the Jack Welch altar, there's consequences, because in the Welch business model, the bottom 10% have to be whacked every year. It's a requirement.
Well, you know, he said to the board of directors a number of years ago that you want to eliminate the bottom 10% every year.
And there must be 10%. You must find it.
Right. Well, you know, I think he's got a new wife, and I think she's mellowed him a little bit, because I've heard him speak lately, and he kind of changed that.
Really?
Says, well, you need to work with them, not necessarily eliminate.
No kidding.
Well, one of the reasons was that a lot of companies got in trouble when they followed his model because he got sued. Ford Motor Company was sued by the unions, and it was a multi-million-dollar settlement because they found that it was discriminatory.
So Susie Welch is responsible for...
Well, she probably is, to some extent.
Well, nevertheless, you do have to provide feedback to employees. In your book, it's got to be done in a positive way. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
If you want more results, that's a critical part of how to do it. So how do you do it?
Well, what you want to do is to develop measures for everybody around what you want them to do, and have a way of continuously measuring that so that they know how well they're doing. We want the goal. You see, the problem with performance appraisal is not its frequency so much as it is the assumptions underlying it. And that is that only a small percentage of people are really our top performers. I have a consulting company, and if somebody comes to me about wanting to do business, and I say, well, now, do you want one of our best performers, or you want one of our average performers? I mean, that'd be ridiculous. I'll give you a good deal on one of the low performers. We want everybody to be the best, and this system prevents you from doing that. In other words, there's no way that everybody is going to be a top performer. And so we don't work day to day to create that kind of environment.
So you're a manager, and under this old-fashioned common system, you're ranking people, and you're pushing them, and you're trying to point out the areas for improvement. So under a more productive system, what is a manager doing?
Well, the manager is working with people day to day.
A coach.
A coach. You're being a coach to people rather than an evaluator. In other words, how can I help that person do better? That's my job, and that's what I should be measured on. How well am I helping people? How am I producing outstanding performers? And to the extent that we have people that do that, then they're very valuable to the organization.
This requires one-on-one time managers to employees?
There are ways to have the performer actually measure themselves, and where you can come in at the end of the month and sit down with them. We've done this where we spend 15 minutes to 30 minutes a month with somebody talking about how they've done, what they might be able to do the next month to improve on what they did the previous month.
True or false, a manager will do better if he or she understands an employee's personal situation, personal goals, personal outlook, priorities, all that. Is that worth spending time, quality time on?
Absolutely, because the idea is that I take a job to help me do things in my life. And so to the extent that a supervisor can help me accomplish that, then I'm going to be more loyal, more productive, more energetic than I would be if I'm treated as a number.
Last question. Not in the book, but I'm curious on your feedback. Analyzing top-performing companies, which I had an opportunity to do several times, a number of them use peer groups to rate, police, give feedback, whatever, on each other. Do you find that is positive or not?
Well, it's not universally a positive thing. The whole idea of 360 feedback is very common these days. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that people are not trained, number one, very well in terms of how to do that, and we have all kind of personal issues that become involved in that. We need some feedback as to how a manager or supervisor is being responded to, or how people see it. In other words, if you work for me, how do you look at me in terms of helping you do the job? And if you have a problem with that, and if I have several people have a problem with that, then there needs to be some point of data to tell management that.
It does get back, though, to the manager being the coach, trying to lift them up, right. Use training, use positive reinforcement, as opposed to rankings and negative feedback.
If you think of a coach, you hire a coach. Tiger Woods has a coach for the explicit purpose of helping him do better. And that's the way a manager or supervisor should be evaluated. How well are you helping people do better? Period.
Aubrey Daniels. Aubrey, thank you. This is another in a series of videos from Aubrey Daniels International based on the book Oops, Management Practices That Waste Time and Money and What to Do Instead. It's available now online at aubreydaniels.com.